Hello and welcome to Tuesday, 2 o'clock, Revel Coach. We are here live with you today. I am Allison Nissen, along with my co-founder and my sister, Marcy Stout. We are so happy to bring this program to you today. Do you want to achieve your goals? Do you know how to set your goals? Do you know techniques that can help you reach them the way you really want to, stretch them out and get there and grab hold of all that gusto? Well, today we are lucky because we have with us an author, a lecturer, a speaker, and the founder of Hypmovation. He's also a two-time swimmer of the Alcatraz. Do you call it Escape from Alcatraz? I'm not even sure, but I would like to introduce to you Jim Zinger. And Jim, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Allison. Good to be with you, ladies.
Well, we are really glad to see you today.
That's great. Life is good.
Exactly.
And as one person said years ago, man's reach should exceed his grasp for what's they having for. Goals are really great. You got to have them. If you don't, you're a wandering generality. You want to be a meaningful specific, have specific goals set in life, whatever that may be.
That is a perfect place to start. So I do feel like goals are one of those things that everybody says they should do. And they even teach it in the children, like the elementary schools, they start teaching like SMART goals and things like that. What, from your experience, how do you get somebody from meandering a little bit with their goals to actually truly going all in and embracing and achieving their goals?
Well, a lot of people make New Year's resolutions, which would be a goal, but they make so many that they don't really know where to start. Within a few days, they're back to their same old habits. So there's basically 8 areas: career, physical, mental, social, spiritual, family, educational, and recreational. So if a person treats their life like a sphere, and they make a circle as an example, and then they divide it into those 8 areas, make a spoke, and then look at where they think they are from a scale of 1 to 10, the center of that spoke being 1 and the outer rim being 10, where you want to be. And they make a little dot in each of those areas. Then they connect those dots. And I hope this is making sense, but they can imagine the outer rim, which is perfect, and the inner rim is like a bicycle that doesn't roll too well. So you look at the area that's most valuable to you, whether it's I break it down to business, family, or personal life. So one person can be superstar successful at business and be fantastically healthy and happy in every way that they like to be, but their family can't stand them. What good is that? We need balance with those goals as well. So business, family, personal life. And if a person picks an area, in setting a goal, they should set it for no less than 3 months, and probably short-term goal no longer than a year, and keep it simple and make that the focus of the day. And you don't even have to know how you're going to get there. You just have to have the goal. It's like if you were going to drive for people that are in Los Angeles, they're going to drive to Santa Barbara and they're going up the 101 and there's a roadblock. Well, then they go around that roadblock and they take the coast highway. Maybe a little late getting there, but they still arrive at their goal. Where other people will go up there, turn around and leave. They don't have a goal in the first place.
Yeah. And I love that, the visual of the wheel and knowing there's so many different parts, because then you kind of think differently of like, am I really balanced in those areas?
Right.
Do you find like some people just have a habit of playing it safe? And they kind of either rationalize that they're okay and they might say they're better off than they are, or they just might not set a goal because they have either fear or reluctance or something that makes them kind of play it small.
Most people are wandering generalities. They really don't know what they're doing. They don't have any goals. Life's working for them. They've got some financial independence, family, love and respect and that, but they're just kind of coasting through the days, the weeks, the months and the years, and they don't accomplish a lot. But you see people come from other countries or poor backgrounds that just aspire to great success in a very short period of time, because they become doers, goers, achievers, they're focused on what they want, which is the goal, rather than the wandering generality that doesn't know what they want. It doesn't mean they're doing badly,
Mhm.
but we all have ability, talent, expertise, knowledge, wisdom. But how are we applying those things to make ourselves better? If you ask, and I know you ladies do counseling of people, but if you ask any salesperson what they should do to increase their business and increase their productivity, they'll have those answers. But that doesn't mean they're doing it. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, call reluctance, procrastination, poor self-image, all these things hold them back. So when a person can focus on those things and see themselves at the end result of where they want to be, a better manager, a better husband, better swimmer, whatever. You were mentioning that I did the Alcatraz when I actually did it when I was 65 and had no idea what I was doing. Then I did it at 76, and then I did it this year when I turned 80. And
That's
your
incredible.
dad trained me.
Well, we lost Marcy, but she'll be back on in a second. So Jim, I've got a question with the idea of self-hypnosis. It's really about taking the focus of your goal and just making it really, really vivid. Is that a correct analysis?
Yeah. People think that to be hypnotized, a person's in a trance or asleep or controlled, manipulated, or dominated. It's the furthest thing from the truth. What hypnosis is a state of heightened or hyper awareness where a person is focused, centered, grounded in the moment. And it speeds up the learning processes from 2 to 5 times over the normal learning rate. Everybody goes through hypnosis every day of their life, whether they realize it or not. And everybody practices self-hypnosis to some degree. But hypnosis by itself is like just basic meditation. It feels good, but doesn't get you anywhere. It's what you do in the hypnosis, how you program, how you visualize, how you emotionalize, how you feel, sense, or experience the change that you want to make in your life. But when a person learns self-hypnosis correctly, they really make some amazing, amazing fast changes.
Are there any tips you could give us?
Well, for the ladies and gentlemen watching this, as you watch your spouse as they go to sleep at night, or your children, you'll notice their eyes are fluttering back and forth in their head. At that time, they're in the same state of mind that we refer to as hypnosis. They're not asleep yet, but they're in an altered state of consciousness, and they're 2 to 5 times more receptive to learn. So ladies, you can look at your husband if he's doing pretty well, and you can say, "You will buy me that new Mercedes. You will buy me that new Mercedes."
His eyes are fluttering.
Right.
It might be the best Tuesday at 2 ever. Best advice.
So at that time, as you're falling asleep at night, if you're thinking negative, depressed, down, bummer thoughts, it pulls you down. But if you tell yourself, "I'm a dynamic, energetic, enthusiastic, positive, creative, imaginative person," lifts you right up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It is amazing how simple it is. And it's actually tested time and true. Like it always works.
Yeah, I graduated over 50,000 people from my course in the first 10 years of business. And I pioneered hypnosis in the corporate world. So I came up with this course long before anybody was doing any of these things, and teaching classes in every place from the US Postal Service, the Army, the Navy, all the major Fortune 100, 500 companies, not all of them, but many of them, and all over the world. And it really made a difference. At one time, I had 400 instructors teaching this Hypmovation course. And then I found that I was a better trainer, teacher, hypnotherapist than I was manager. So I backed into just doing keynote speaking and seminars internationally. And, I had more joy out of that. But Hypmovation has really done some major things for people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really am a believer and I love your work. And I'd love to know, like, as post 2020, one of the better things that's happening is it's more common for us to talk about, whether it's hypnosis, meditation, all those things. You see it on TV, you see it in commercials, people are talking about it all the time. It's become so much more mainstream that it's less of a woo-woo thing, and more people are seeing scientific results when they're, tied up.
Right.
So
And
how
hypnosis and meditation are synonymous. Again, it's what you do in it. When I started this company in 1968, 54 years ago, people were woo-woo, you're not going to have me clucking like a chicken, and I'm not interested in that. Once they realize that they can tap into their potential in every area of their life and excel, overcome the things that are holding them back, it exploded.
Yeah. And tell us more a little bit about like what you do in hypnosis. So when you say that, is it what you do in terms of like silencing your thoughts, or what does that mean?
It's an actual active program. To what we teach at Hypmovation is a person sits down in the beginning. It's an 8-session program, but in the beginning they just sit down or they lie down. They take 5 to 7 minutes to progressively relax themselves from the toes to the nose, the deep breaths and the relaxation. And they'll have all kinds of roof brain chatter. Little Marcy will be back there saying, this isn't going to work for me. I'm not going to get any results. This is a bunch of bull, whatever. But you just go through this relaxation. And then once you're there, and the way we always taught it is, don't worry about whether you're hypnotized or not hypnotized. You just get into giving yourself the suggestions, and the proof is in the results. So if a person's working on temperament and they're saying, I'm more kind, compassionate, considerate, relaxed, and patient in every situation, then they get into a situation where they would normally lose their temper, and they find themselves being at ease and comfortable. Or maybe they lost their temper on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe they lost it at a 5, but they realized that before they would have lost it at a 9. So they're getting better, and that's how you tell it's working for you. So it's 5 to 7 minutes to relax. Excuse me. And then a person tells themselves, and your listeners can do this right now, viewers, that you tell yourself a fantastic, fabulous story about the fantastic, fabulous person that you are right now. Not becoming, not wanting, but now. Mm-hmm. And then you visualize and emotionalize and pretend and see and feel. Some people are visual, some people are feeling. So you use whatever it is you have to go to the end result of what you want, and picture yourself as an energetic, enthusiastic, relaxed, kind, loving, caring, sharing parent who is attracting success and prosperity. And you put it in the first person. I'm attracting success and prosperity of myself like a magnet to metal. I believe in myself. I trust myself. I respect myself. What needs to be done for the day, I do for the day, because I'm a doer, a goer, an achiever, and a high performer. I'm excited about my life, my family, my friends, that kind of thing, And it's just a visualization. And again, the little you back there said, no way in hell. Doesn't matter. Just don't look to be in anything. Just go through the procedure, or a person can do that in their meditation. Or just as you're falling asleep at night, as you awaken in the morning, you go through hypnosis anyway. There's this period of time I told you, 3 seconds to 5 minutes. And at that time you see the kids or the adults' eyelids fluttering and that type of thing. They're 2 to 5 times more receptive to learn at that time. So as you're falling asleep, make sure the story you tell yourself is a worthwhile, happy story, rather than watching some negative news tips about what's going on in the world. Get into the joy of what you're doing in your world, in your family, and next thing you know, you're sleeping deeper, you're feeling better, you've got more energy, and then pat yourself on the back when you feel any of that happening. I'm getting better.
It sounds a lot like what we talk about with the Revel way, which is, you create a vivid vision, you create a plan of action,
exactly.
You experience the growth, and then you celebrate the joy all along the way. I mean, right. What I really like about this though is the affirmation that it's the telling yourself the good story, telling yourself the story that is realistic and the one that is goal oriented as well.
And you don't have to believe the story. See, people make causes for themselves all the time. I'm negative, or, I'm afraid of people, or I could never swim this, or I could never get along with that person. But you tell yourself a story, the more I'm around that person, the better I feel about myself. And I find I can communicate with everybody. And you get better.
Yeah, I do feel like I don't know whether this is more of an American phenomena or just busy people phenomena, but I feel like we are so much better at the negative self-talk in our head than the positive. But if you just kind of become aware of that negative self-talk and allow yourself to believe another story, because, we think about it, as simple as this is, like when the kids come home from school, as a mom, they just had 6 hours of growth. And if I kind of, when they walk in the door, be like, how'd you do on that test that we know you're going to struggle on? Like they tell you one moment of struggle instead of like, tell me about the most fun thing that you had, like having them say out loud the stories of what they really enjoyed as a 14-year-old, as a 10-year-old. And there's so much to their life on every day. So I like the thought of just kind of helping people to reshape the stories they say. And then what I learned from you in the meditation practice is sometimes if it's too visionary, too forward thinking, the doubt could creep in. But if you're kind of saying what it is for today, it is a story that people can believe. It's just kind of shaping it from a new direction.
Right. But back to your initial statement that people are negative and focus on that. People are much more positive than they are negative, but they tend to focus on they're 80% positive, 90% positive, and 10%, 15% maybe negative. You get up in the morning, you jump in your car and you drive to wherever you're going to go. If your car runs out of gas, you get a flat tire, you get mad at the car because you're positive and you expect it to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So, if your battery is dead, it's the car's fault because you're positive. But people don't give themselves credit that, I drove here, I did it safely. They get out of bed, they brush their teeth, they didn't fall down, they didn't bang their head in the shower. We just take all this stuff for granted,
Yeah, Jim, that's such a good way.
Exactly.
Yeah, 90% of awesome things are happening, and then the little 10% is the noise.
Right. Where people tend to focus, and they tend to beat themselves up above their head and shoulders for the things they've done wrong, versus complimenting themselves for the things they've done right. And people get this negative self-image that I can't do something, and it's just self-restricting and holds them back. When they can, they got to take the T out of can't. And what you were saying earlier too, with what you're teaching and programming and lecturing on, is the same thing that I'm talking about. The only different twist is and it's not much of a different one, is that I totally believe in the self-hypnosis, which speeds up the learning processes 2 to 5 times over the normal learning rate. We have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The conscious mind is 10%, subconscious mind is 90%. So people think that they're having new experiences every day, and they're not. They were just creatures of habit. We're doing the same thing day in, day out. But you start focusing on any of those 8 areas that you want to change, and the next thing you know, you are changing. And as you feel any kind of growth, you slept a little better, you had a little bit more energy, you made a better choice in the food that you're eating, or rather than eat the whole pie, you only ate half the pie. Compliment yourself on what it is that you're getting better at. And that's exciting stuff. It works.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
focus on what's working, not what's not working.
All right, so I want to switch gears to something. So a lot of people, as we get older, you start thinking, I can't do something, like your body can't do something, and you fictitiously believe that there's these limitations because you've seen other older people at whatever age unable to do the same things. So let's talk about you going to Alcatraz. So when it came to your thoughts about redoing it once you turned 80, Or actually share the story of how it happened where you're like, okay, I think I want to swim Alcatraz again at this age. And how did you kind of get your mindset there?
Well, a lot of people swim Alcatraz, but I did it without a wetsuit.
Of course.
So, you know, you're in 52-degree water, and a lot of people feel that they just can't do that.
Mhm.
But the first time I did it, it took me 1 hour and 48 minutes. The second time I did it, it took me 54 minutes. And then with your dad's training, the last time was 40 minutes.
Wow.
You know, the faster you get out of the water.
Yeah, better.
Yeah, that
the better you
would be good.
But for 80 years old, that's a pretty good thing. You know, your father's older than I am, and he's got a bunch of he was a dentist, as you know. He's got a bunch of new knees and parts and that, but he's very, very active. I'm 80 years old and I'm still functioning on all of my original parts. And I've had any surgeries that I have had, haven't been that major, but I don't use any anesthetic, you know, whether it's cutting part of my face off for skin cancer or oral surgery or root canals or implants or that. I don't use anesthetic for anything because we all have the ability to do that. And people say, I could never do that. Well, you're absolutely right. When you say you can't, you can't, but you can. If your viewers would just think in terms of the last time that they had a super headache, or they'd stubbed their toe, or their arm was broken, or whatever it was, they're in a lot of pain, but they go to bed at night without taking anything, they fall asleep. They're oblivious to that pain until they awaken in the morning. What happened? They shut off the neuron activity that senses pain. So the difference is that we can do that when we're wide awake. You know, you've heard of people who've been lost at sea for days, and they say they wouldn't last for 2 more hours. They might have lasted for 2 more days. Or people that have broken their arms and been bad traffic accidents and crawling through the tundra to get out, you know, that desire to live. They shut off all that pain, or most of it anyway. So we all have that kind of ability. It's a matter of, do we want to tap into it? I just listened to some doctors lecturing today. What people want to do is take a pill. You got a headache? Take a pill. Can't sleep? Take a pill. It's like putting an umbrella up in the rain. It's still there. It's just not affecting you the same way. But if you use your own mind, then you don't need those pills.
So if you're going into, so say you're going to extract some teeth. Okay. So most people get Novocaine or something like that. You can go in and say, I'm going to consciously cut off that part of my mental pain, like the pain threshold, and go through it. How do you kind of start that, like a week or 2 in advance? Is this the morning of? How do you actually?
Well, I've been doing this for a lot of years now. So, you know, I headed up the largest medically supervised overweight research center back in the 60s using hypnotic techniques. And that's what gave birth to Hypmovation. So I was using hypnosis before that. When they asked me to head the center up, I was teaching doctors, dentists, police officers how to be hypnotists and use it in their professions. So I like to walk my talk. So I've just always used my hypnosis for pain control, like that type of thing. Do I feel pain? Just as much as anybody else. I stub my toe, it hurts. The difference is that I can take that pain away. So, or shut it off. So how long does it take me to prepare? In the beginning, you know, maybe 20 minutes, half hour. Now I can just walk over, sit down in the chair and say, pull it out. So it's that fast. You become that.
Now I have new goals.
New goals.
Now I have new goals.
Not to get the teeth done, but to, if I stub my toe.
Yeah, right. But the first time I ever did it in a dentist chair, I sat down and I said, I don't want to use any Novocaine. The guy says, I'm going right into the root, doing a root canal. It's going to hurt. And I said, if it hurts, I'll scream. You can give me anything you want. In the meantime,
let's try.
I'm not using anything, you know? And so he started drilling and I'm thinking, I hope this works, because if not, it's going to hurt like hell. So you still have that roof brain chatter.
Little Marcy on the mat.
Yeah. So you don't when you're in hypnosis, other than feeling deeply relaxed, you don't feel much different than you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're still a thinking, communicating person, but you're just a lot more focused.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Just a quick little side chat on this is today we are so connected to our electronic devices. You know, everyone's got a phone in their hand, they've got earbuds on, they're watching something, and they're no longer just sitting with their own thoughts. Do you think that that interferes with that ability?
I think so. You know, it's funny that you bring that up because I guess it was Marcy's children. You have a couple of boys.
Mm-hmm.
I met them down at the beach with T.O. Doug, which is Uncle Doug. Right? With him one time, he introduced me to them, and it just kind of surprised me. They were nice kids, I think. I don't know those boys because he introduced me to do, and both of them instantly went back to their phones.
Oh,
It's like, hi, how are you? Which is, you know, I mean, that's not just your kids. That happened with your kids, but that just happens all the time.
generation.
People are locked into these devices. And
I may ground them. They may get grounded. They may get punishment after this call.
That was years ago. That was 2-3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
I heard you going like, you met him at the beach. I'm like,
but you know, and I'm sure they're great. You know, the youth of today has different challenges than I had. You know, when I grew up in northern Canada, where we got our groceries once a year, so you know, no fresh fruit, no fresh vegetables, powdered milk, all that kind of stuff.
There's a whole nother Tuesday at 2 for that one. So.
Anyway, it's been great talking with you, ladies. If your people want to see some surgeries and that, they can go to my website, which is 1-800-SUCCEED.com, which is also my phone number, or they can go to jimzinger.com or hypmovation.com. Any of those places will get them right to where they can.
Wonderful. Well, Jim, it's always so good to see you. We love just your spirit and your energy around your work you do, and just your relationship with our dad. And so we appreciate your time today, and thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, ladies, and you have a great afternoon. And I wasn't picking on your kids.
Oh, I know. They deserve it. They deserve it.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.